Hello. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will start with the final remarks about the 115 family in the second part of my talk. So I hope I convinced you in the first talk that the 115 compounds, they have unique phase diagrams in terms of Heavy-Fermion superconductivity. If they bring to us the opportunity to really experimentally tune between magnetism and Heavy-Fermion superconductivity and quantum criticality in this system in very nice crystals. One thing that I said that we have structure-related materials that we can try to see the role of dimensionality and local symmetry in determining these phases. So I mentioned to you that they are related to the cubic compounds, and they are also the bilayer version of this material. So let's get back to the structure. So we have the cylinder 3, which is a cubic material, and the 115, the single layer version of the cylinder 3, tetragonal one. You have the material transition metal in the 2 layer and the cylinder 3 block. When you go to the 218, you have 2 cylinder 3 blocks there, close to each other. So the series are close to each other along the C-axis, and they are in 115. So these are a more 2D-like version of the 115. So in terms of the dimensionality, one may think based on the structure that that's a more 2D, and the 218 is something between the cubic compounds, the 3D, and the 2D material, which is 115. So it's something in the between, in the middle. So that's the phase diagram for the 218s. So for that bilayer version. You see the rhodium material is an antiferromagnetic tube. It has a TNA of 2.8, which is smaller than the 115. When you replace rhodium by iridium, that's the out of the plane substitution, if you remember, you suppress the antiferromagnetism, but you go to a spin glass state at the iridium side. It's not a superconductor, right? That's measured by Mia star. And if you go to the cobalt side, you do find superconductivity in cobalt indium 8, 72 cobalt indium 8. But it has a TCO at 1 Kelvin, which is a factor of 2 lower than the 0 cobalt indium 5. If you look more carefully in the alloys, you can find, replace a rhodium by iridium, that you actually see some residual superconducting phase around 5th and 6% of iridium replacement, also for the 218s. But when we apply pressure, we quickly suppress that superconducting phase, and we induce by pressure the superconducting phase, just like the 115, the rhodium 115, right? But if you look at these energy scales of the temperature for this phase diagram, and also the range of concentration that you can find superconductivity, you can see that both the energy scale of TC, if you compare this around 1 Kelvin, that's a factor of 2 less, it's a half, right? And also the range of superconductivity, occurrence of the superconductivity is much smaller. So going to the bilayer version seems to be suppressing the occurrence of superconductivity. So you're reducing the energy scale to low going to the bilayer version. And also the range where you find that superconductivity. So higher dimensionality seems to be compromised, seems to be difficult in the occurrence of Heavy-Fermion superconductivity in these materials. I should tell that this phase diagram was built by resistivity as a function of pressure by Eduardo Erengi, which was a PhD student of Hortêncio Borges from PUC, and this work was actually done here in the CVPF. Okay, so another thing that I told you yesterday is that in terms of looking for near materials, the 115 has a message that maybe it's a good idea try to look at cubic compounds and try to make them tetragonal and see if you can find more Heavy-Fermion superconductor within the same structure. So I give you some examples. For example, so let's think about CRT3 and try to make it 115. So that's difficult actually. So we can replace a little bit of tin in the 115 right, at the indio site. But when you try to grow zero cobalt tin-5, you go to a different class of materials. So we actually grow the T413 family, which is a cubic materials and no heavy-Fermion superconductivity there. There are interesting materials. I mean, you can grow the whole family, you can study their properties, but there is no heavy-Fermion superconductivity here. But the same idea of looking for new compounds of the same structure has led to the discovery of plutonium, cobalt, gallium-5 that you have heard a lot about, right? But that's the same crystal growth methodology, looking for different among 5 different tetragonal materials that may arise from a block of 4 F electron, a F electron compound ion like a plutonium or Heavy-Fermion or cerium in a cubic block that you can separate it by layer. So you can see that you have the same structure of plutonium, cobalt, gallium-5. You have blocks of plutonium and gallium-3 separated by cobalt, gallium-2. And that silver ratio that I told you about in the serial materials, you can actually see the same silver ratio in the plutonium compounds. Here, the plutonium has 18 Kelvin TCU. It's a 1 order magnitude larger. Despite of that, if you look at the slope, delta TC over delta C over A, they have the same slope. That's really peculiar. So if you normalize somehow the data of plutonium, you can put over the data of cerium and have the same silver A slope. So you might think that, well, once you have a characteristic spin fluctuation temperature, you can tune dimensionality and change TC over a class of material that has similar spin fluctuation temperature. And here, so why should we think that the spin fluctuation temperature is changed when you go to zero cobalt and 5 with the plutonium case? You can see that's the resistivity. So if we take the coherence temperature as a measure of the spin fluctuation temperature, you can see that you have a very well-developed maximum at 50 K for cobalt that seems to be shifted to the higher temperature when you go to the plutonium, cobalt, gallium-5, right? So it seems that you have a more localized electron in case of plutonium. You're shifting the TK to higher temperature and the characteristic energy scale for the spin fluctuation. If you do that, if you keep on doing that, you go far away for any magnetic fluctuation, presumably. And you do that with uranium, and this compound is just a metal. There is no phase transition there. So you need to keep that spin fluctuation close and strong enough to perhaps mediate your pairing. Well, and you also see in pure stuff that when you look at the NMR of plutonium, cobalt, gallium-5 and compare to zero cobalt, gallium-5 and the high TC material, if you look at the spin fluctuation at the normal state, they have a very similar temporal dependence when you normalize by the characteristic temperature of each compound. So this really suggests that maybe there is a similarity in the spin fluctuation that maybe can mediate superconductivity in all these different classes of compounds. And that is really different from magnesium boron 2, for example, right? And so maybe plutonium, cobalt, gallium-5, it can be seen like a bridge between the low T Heavy-Fermion superconductors and the high temperature superconductors. Okay, but it's very important to show that they are similar in many aspects, but they are very different in many other aspects, right? So that's a similarity, right? They are both layered tetragonal structure, right? So you have a layer of copper oxide, you have a layer of cerium-3, right? You can tune, in both cases, an antiferromagnetic ground state to superconductivity, right, by a control parameter. In case of ITC, you are really doping the material, right? You have an insulator, antiferromagnetic insulator that end. For the ON5 material, there are very good metal all the way in the phase diagram. And we just, you are changing rhodium and cobalt, you are not adding carriers, right? You are just making tuning of the important microscopic interactions. But they have similarity in the normal state, like I said, just show the dynamics of the spin measured by NMR. They have linear resistivity in the normal state in both cases, for the cuprates and for the 115. That's experimental fact. Well, how about the difference? I just said one of them, that the charge should play an important role in the case of the high TC, because you are driving an insulator into a metal when you are doping your material. Here we have a metal all the time. Even if you consider just the spin degree of freedom, you are dealing with the 3D magnetism in one case and a 4F magnetism in another case, right? One important difference between them is the role of spin-orbital coupling. And I'm trying to get on that. Okay, so let's get back. So that's the structure again. So if in here in the serial side, right, I have I discussed it in my first letter. So we have a J equal 5 halves, right? And you have an orbital component of that spin, right? For in the case of serial. Okay, so let's look at the high temperature magnetic susceptibility of the compounds. So it's very, very simple analysis I'm going to try to do. You see that the three compounds, they have an easy X, a more susceptible X along the C axis, along the tetragonal axis. And they have very similar AB plane magnetic susceptibility. You see there is a systematic here that starts to develop some plateau when you go from rhodium to iridium to cobalt. So what is the origin of that? That's a complicated question actually. What is the origin of this? Well, we can start thinking of the most simple argument that you can find. That's reasonable, right? So you can look and say, well, in a regular rare earths, where you have no Coulomb effect, I mean, you put your ion in a lattice, you have the charge, you have the crystal field effects. And that can change magnetic, right? You're going to split your J multiplet, or you calculate your magnetic, that will depend on the energy splittings and the actual wave function you got there. Okay, so in principle, so as experimentalists I have the data, can try to fit with the simple idea. So that's a tetragonal crystal field Hamiltonian. And actually, you can fit and reproduce the main feature of the data just by this Hamiltonian. But that's really dangerous, right? That's really dangerous to do. Because this Hamiltonian is not as simple as it looks. So you can change these parameters randomically, you get reproduce the data, but there is no physical meaning. So you should be very careful. Especially when you are dealing with a very complicated material, right? That we know for sure that Coulomb effect is important. We know for sure that we should take hybridization into account. So that's dangerous, right? But it's curious that at least you can reproduce the anisotropy in many of the fixtures. So it's safe. It's more safe if you say, well, let's look at the similar compounds that I don't need to worry about hybridization and Coulomb effects. So I look at compounds of the same family, right? Look into the other earths that they are well behaving in terms of hybridization and localization of the F electrons. Okay, so I look at the R in the three compounds. So we know the properties of the serum in the tree, right? It's a pressure-induced superconductor, Heavy-Fermion superconductor. We go to the next one. It's praseodymium in the tree. It's a non-magnetic material because it has a singlet ground state. So crystal field state, it's a singlet ground state, S, no spin to order, right? Okay, you go to neodymium in the tree. You have an antiferromagnet, but it's a very complicated magnet phase diagram. So even at zero field, you have three magnetic phases that's described here by this magnetic wave vector. And only at very low temperature you reach a commensurate, more standard magnet structure. Well, but this evolution can be explained, can be modeled with this solid line there, just including the crystal field anisotropy and exchange and quadrupolar interaction. So it's all local physics. You can explain this complex phase diagram. Well, let's see what happened to praseodymium 115s. So praseodymium 115s, they also have singlet count states. So they don't order magnetically. So I cannot follow how the magnetic state changed as a function of rhodium, iridium, cobalt, because I have no order phase. So they are singlet count states, and you can more or less simulate an isotropy of the two. Here I'm showing the 115 and the 218. They're both tetragonal, so I can look at all of them together for rhodium and iridium. So you can see that only with the crystal field anisotropy you explain, only the crystal field Hamiltonian you explain the observed anisotropy for praseodymium. Okay, you go to neodymium, you keep going along the rare earth series, and you can find praseodymium. I have shown you cerium and praseodymium. Now I have neodymium, samarium, and gadolinium. So these three ordered interferomagnetically. So you can see here the specific heat, the resistivity, and the magnetic all showing interferomagnetic order for neodymium, samarium, and gadolinium for both 115 and 218s, rhodium and iridium. So I want to see that. First, if I try to do a DJ scaling, what's a DJ scaling? You have your total angular momentum of the rare earths depends on J. The projection of that in the spin space of that total angular momentum is given by the DJ factor. So if your property only depends on the spin part of the moment, it should scale as that component varies along the rare earths. So that's the DJ factor. So if you try to scale your T-nail using the DJ factor, you see that you normalize for gadolinium. Samarium is along the line, but neodymium is not. You have a T-nail above the line. And praseodymium, of course, doesn't order, so it has a point below the line. And cerium, of course, is a more complicated case. Is not in the DJ scale. So the DJ scale doesn't consider crystal fields, Coulomb effects, right? It's just taking one earth, put another in the place. So all the complications like crystal fields and Coulomb effects can change the scaling. So that for cerium you know that you can have both, and for praseodymium and neodymium it's probably just the crystal fields. Okay, so another way to look at the evolution of the Néel temperature is comparing your Néel temperature for the tetragonal compounds with the cubic flux. So what changes when you make it more tetragonal? And look at that. First, you get your magnetizability data, make a polycrystalline average, and look at the high temperature. You can calculate your revised temperature, right? So that tells you at very high temperature, when the crystal fields are all populated, and you make an average of your data to remove an isotropy. So that tells you a measure of the effective magnetic interaction at the high temperature, right? So when you do that, look, you normalize for neodymium, gadolinium, and cerium, that are all interferomagnetic. They have about the same theta at high, above 200K. So that tells you that for the cubic compound, for both the tetragonal, 115 and 218, rhodium, iridium, they have about the same magnetic interaction, effective magnetic interaction at high temperature. When you go to the low temperature, you start to depopulate the states and go to the low temperature. Look at what happens. So when you look at the neodymium, you see that you have enhancement of the Néel temperature for the tetragonal compounds, and you have a suppression of the Néel temperature for the cerium compounds, right? So those, and for gadolinium, nothing's happening. So what's the main difference between gadolinium, cerium, and neodymium? Gadolinium has 7 electrons at 4F state. That's L equals 0. So there is no orbital, or there is no crystal field effects. So in absence of crystal fields, you can get gadolinium indium 3, gadolinium rhodium indium 5, gadolinium indium 5, 218s, and they have the same nail temperature. So if you are really tuning the days of states, for example, between these compounds, right? And say, well, we are tuning somehow the number of carriers or your Fermi level. You are really changing our RTQY interaction. Then you should change for gadolinium too. It's a pure spin system. And cubic, bi-layer, single layer, they all have the same nail temperature. Okay, when you go to the neodymium, it does change. Go to the, it increases for the tetragonal compound, and for cerium, it decreases when you go cubic to tetragonal. So both have crystal field, but cerium has additionally the important role of carbonization in common. Okay, so let's look at the neodymium first, and let's look at the specific heat and the entropy recovered at T-nail along the materials. So here we're showing the entropy, the magnetic entropy, calculated from this curve along the materials. You can see that neodymium 3, we have almost 2 R log aluminium 2 because it's a quartet ground state for the cubic compound. When you go to tetragonal, you see that entropy at T-nail decreases systematically along the family at the same sequence that T-nail increases along the family. You see? So if you look at the compounds here, the order, the sequence that T-nail, that the entropy is decreasing at T-nail is the same sequence as T-nail is increasing. So what's going on? So when you go to the cubic for tetragonal, we know that that quartet should be split. And the recover less entropy means that you have a higher splitting of that gamma 8. So the larger gamma 8 crystal field splitting, the large is the nail temperature for this material. So it's a very local, simple physics, right? Well, a very important, a very powerful tool to look at changes in crystal fields in materials is electron spin resonance, as I said in the first talk. But it's really sad that now that I have very nice crystals in my hands, and I have a very nice ESR spectrometer in my lab, I can't find any ESR signal in 115s. That's really sad for me. And I don't know why. I have tried if I try to look cerium, I cannot see. And that's difficult. That's understandable. If I put gadolinium in cerium, rhodium, indium, cobalt, indium 5, no sign of gadolinium. Erbium, neodymium, whatever, I cannot see electron spin resonance, unfortunately, in this system. That's very curious. Even when I try transition metals in the rhodium, cobalt, or iridium side, I cannot see resonance. Not even for lanthanum. Not even for the lanthanum analogs. So that means there's nothing to do with Kondo. There is nothing to do with high relaxation rates. Nothing. It's just a problem of the environment of the material, the local symmetry of the Earth site. I can't see lanthanum, gadolinium, lanthanum 3. See, not in the, well, perhaps in cerium 3. But I'm for sure in lanthanum 3, right? But when you dope it, and also for the concentrate gadolinium compounds in 115 and 218s. But when you dope it in lanthanum, you can see here that the lines get broader very fast with doping. But I can't get an information even for the concentrate gadolinium compounds. Look, I have gadolinium 3 and the 218s and 115. And again, the sequence that this line width is getting broader is the same sequence that we saw. The splitting of the gamma 8 and the increase of T-nail of neodymium. So my explanation to not see the gadolinium resonance is because you have a very low symmetry and you have a high crystal field splitting. In this case, the second order one, the same size of the Zim effect. That's why you can see it in the ESR. So you have 7 lines get put together in this resonance. So if the crystal field split increases, the lines get separated from each other. This spectrum gets broader and you cannot see. So that tells me that I have an increase in of the crystal field splitting at the same sequence I found for neodymium. Okay. So to be sure about, I'm going to conclude, I want to know how is the magnetic structure of each member, right? I want to know how the magnetic structure evolves in the series when it's changing from 115 to 118 and exchanging rhodium, iridium, cobalt, and so on. So we did a very hard work to determine the magnetic structure of many of these materials using X-ray magnetic diffraction at Synchrotron Laboratory in Campinas. And actually, Raimundo Lora Serrano, who is seated up there, in his thesis determined by X-ray magnetic diffraction 6 magnetic structure of unknown compounds using synchrotron radiation. And that's, to the best of our knowledge, was the first time that unsolved magnetic structure were determined by magnetic X-ray diffraction in the Latin America. So if you compare the structure, well, here's an example of the technique that you measuring the X-ray magnetic diffraction at the resonance. It's a resonance effect. So when you are at the edge of the gadolinium ion, you have a huge enhancement of the magnetic diffraction. So you can see that in that condition, you can be able to measure a magnetic Bragg peak and determine a magnetic structure just like you do with neutrons. And the exciting part of this is gadolinium, for example, is a highly absorbing neutron ion. So you cannot use neutrons to do this measurement. You can do it very nicely with X-ray magnetic diffraction. Well, so we determined the 3 magnetic structure of gadolinium. And if you look at them, they are all commensurated, and there is no change at all when you go rhodium, iridium, 115 to 118. They have the same negative temperature, they have the same magnetic structure. We're not convinced yet, so let's grow one more. So we grow the terbium, rhodium, indium 5, right? You include another rare earth, right? It has a nail temperature of 47. We measured all the bulk properties, so you can see the nail temperature there by heat capacity, resistivity, and magnetizability, and we determine the magnetic structure. And how about that crystal field trend that we saw for neodymium? It's going to happen here. So it has the easy axis along the c-axis. Well, you see that terbium, also like neodymium, has a large T-nail for the tetragonal compounds when you compare to the cubic ones, right? So here you get gadolinium, here's the cerium. So cerium so far is the only one that T-nail decreases when you go from cubic to tetragonal. So neodymium and terbium both have increases on the nail temperature. Okay, so there's a difference between terbium and neodymium and cerium, right? Let's try to understand how the crystal field can induce an enhancement of T-nail just by a picture argument. So you have your crystal field parameters. You have the cubic ones and you have the tetragonal ones, with the second order one, with a 0 for the cubic compound. So let's assume you have the cubic compound. It has an easy axis that goes along one direction, determined by the 4th order and 6th order cubic crystal field parameter. When you go to the tetragonal compound, you are introducing a tetragonal crystal field parameter that is going to change your wave function. So that new, that new parameter can compete in terms of anisotropy with the cubical ones and can change the direction of your moment to a direction that gives you a better matching of anisotropy between the parameters and it hits the nail. So somehow, when you go to the lower symmetry and include that parameter, you are having a better matching of anisotropies along the different parameters. So it's kind of release magnetic frustration and increase the nail temperature. Well, how about the serial one? Well, perhaps you can have the same, right? We can have a cube parameter that wants to give you, for example, one direction, and a tetragonal parameter that's more like to point your spin along the c-axis. So there are two competing anisotropy that's increasing as big as V20. So you actually decrease the nail. But a very simple crystal field argument. So but that's very hand-waving, right, argument. And the problem with the theory is what's going to happen with the contact temperature in this scenario. I mean, we cannot forget about it. It's very important interaction, right? But it's too complicated to take into account all of this. So let's forget that TK for a moment and see what can we learn from the serial compound only with the crystal fields and the RKTY interaction. Before we go there, when you look to the neodymium compound, it has a lower T nail than the tetragonal ones, and it has a more complex phase diagrams and field. When you go to the serial compounds, the tetragonal compounds are the ones that have lower T nail, right? So you should expect more complex phase diagram because of having competing magnetic interaction for the serial 115s than for the serial 3. And actually we have complex phase diagrams for the 115s, for the 115 and 218 rhodium, which are the magnetic ones. So they are more like the neodymium 3, which is the frustrated one in the case of neodymium compounds. So at the beginning we thought, oh my God, there could be a relation between the states of these materials just by the crystal fields. I mean, that's very dumb, that's very simple idea. But let's see experimentally if that's possible. So in principle, you can have some evolution. Oops, I'm sorry. You could have some evolution of the crystal field scheme as you go to serial 3, rhodium 115, rhodium 218, iridium 115, going for antiferromagnet to superconductor, suppressing the nail by a local physical mechanism, and then that local fluctuation may induce superconductivity on another side. I mean, that's very simple, oversimplification of the problem, I know. But let's see what happens if you assume that. So the only way to know reasonably well the crystal field schemes is to measure inelastic neutron scattering. And that was done motivated by that simple idea I'm telling you there right now, right? So here, what we got when you actually measure the crystal field schemes for serial 3, serial rhodium 5, serial iridium 5, serial cobalt 5. We can see that there is that systematic that what we are trying to find doesn't happen in terms of energy splitting. You see, that's the gamma 8, the quartet in serial 3, it gets split, but this splitting is about the same for the 315. They're not really different. But there is an interesting thing here. There's two interesting things here actually. From the line width of the inelastic excitation, neutron excitation, you can guess how is the 4-electron bandwidth that's related to the strength of hybridization. And you actually find that for the serial rhodium 5, you have a narrow inelastic excitation, which means that they are very localized. And that width increases in the sequence rhodium, cobalt, and iridium. So you may take that result and say, well, there is nothing to do with crystal fields. And you have rhodium here, right? And your neutron is saying, we increase hybridization only, doesn't mirror the crystal field. And we move, you compensate the F electrons, and you move here to the cobalt. And if you keep increasing hybridization, you move in that line to iridium, and that's why TC decreases from iridium when you go to cobalt. So it's just a matter of hybridization. But if you look at this wave function we have here, it has a clear evolution going from rhodium to iridium to cobalt. So that wave function actually changes the single line anisotropy of that ground state. That wave function determines G parallel and G perpendicular, or your local moment symmetry at the ground state. So it's interesting that it changes. Well, so we know the magnetic structure for cerium, neodymium, gadolinium, and terbium. We see that the neodymium and terbium, let's focus on the 115 now. So the neodymium and terbium, they have the moment pointed along the c-axis. And the cerium one has the moment pointed in the plane. The magnetic moment are in the plane for cerium 5. So those compounds that order axially along the c-axis, they have tineo larger than the cubic. The compound that orders in the plane, they have a tineo lower for the tetragon compound than the cubic. Remember that I showed you at the beginning that all compounds in the series, they have the easy X by magnetic susceptibility, the more susceptible X along the c-axis. So for those compounds, the order direction of the moment is pointed along the easy axis, the more susceptible easy axis at the paramagnetic state. In the cerium, although it has a large magnetic susceptibility along the c-axis, that you order in the plane. So you can have a crystal field-induced mechanism that enhances tineo for those that are ordered along the c-axis and suppress tineo for those that order in the plane. So that's two handy-wavy arguments. So I asked the help from our theoretician collaborators, Eduardo Miranda and Daniel Garcia, who's sitting over there, his postdoc, to make a very simple calculation for me. We just use a mean field RKQY interaction and the crystal field Hamiltonian. Only this. And play around with the crystal field parameters and see if you can explain why cerium order in the plane, why neodymium terbium order around the c-axis, and why tineo should depend on the crystal fields. So first, if you get the cubic parameter for cerium in the tree and use it here, that's the cubic parameter for cerium in the tree, which for the cubic Hamiltonian gives you an order around the 111. When you turn on the B20, which is the tetragonal crystal field, you see that for cerium, the moment comes to the plane for reasonable values of B20 found in these compounds experimentally. And the neodymium goes to the c-axis. So that depends on the character of their J, of their error magnetic moment. So that's why it is different from neodymium or cerium. But that's explained. The cerium has a tendency to order the plane by the tetragonal symmetry, by when you turn on B20. Only when you increase you keep increasing B20 that eventually we go along the c-axis. So you have a region that even being more susceptible along the c-axis, the moments want to be in the plane. In a very simple picture. And how about so that explains the summer effect. So neodymium, I'm going to show the terror soon. So neodymium has the order along the c-axis. Cerium has the order along in the ambient plane, and that's well explained by that very simple model. And how about this evolution of this parameter here, the change in this wave function? May this be important for the properties of the minimum 5? Well, let's see the behavior in T nail. Okay, so let's try to explain this plot. So that's nail temperature normalized by the isotropic temperature with it's related to the cubic compound. So here we are plotting the likeness of the system to be ordered along the z-axis, but using only the wave function of that ground state, because I know by fact, by Newton, that that's the wave function that is changing. The energy splitting, we saw that they are the same, they shouldn't matter. But we found a very systematic evolution of that wave function at the ground state. So let's see if changing only that wave function and the likeness of being along the z-axis to have a g along the z-axis much bigger than in the plane, if this can change T negative. And we can do that by many different crystal field parameters. For example, you keep changing the parameters, see if your zero moments are in the plane, and calculate that value. And you're going to plot like this for cerium, a suppression of T nail for cerium, and an increase of T nail for terbium and neodymium. So when the system order along the z-axis and your ground state has the appropriate symmetry that gives you a likeness to be ordered along the z-axis, that mechanism enhances T nail. For cerium, even though you have the likeness to be to order along the z-axis, the moments are ordered in the plane by competition between the different crystal field ground state. So that gives you, in a very simple picture, frustration mechanism driven by crystal fields. I mean, for other rare earths, for the non-Kramer ones, that's very easy to see, right? Let's get praseodymium. You can have an RK-Y interaction in a praseodymium system on, I don't know, few Kelvin, 10 Kelvin, 20 Kelvin, right? But if you lower the temperature and you have a singlet ground state which has no spin, the system will not order, right? There's no spin there. But if the RK-Y interaction is high enough, is temperature state high enough that you actually are seeing a crystal field state that has a spin, the system may order. Or alternatively, if you tune your crystal field parameter, change it one ion by another, keeping the same RK-Y interaction, you can drive non-magnetic to magnetic, right? If you substitute one ion, change the potential, invert the wave function, now you have a RK-Y interaction, you have a magnet state you can order just by tuning the crystal field. But that's not obvious for the Kramer one, for the serial ones, right? But that model has shown that it may happen. You can tune the crystal field parameters and suppress the nail when you go from cubic to tetragonal only by this mechanism, and you can enhance it too. So why that could be important? So let's summarize actually the experimental fact. So cerium rolling 5 orders in the plane, neodymium rolling in 5 orders along the z-axis. You go from the cubic to tetragonal. We introduce B to 0, the orders of the cerium go in the plane, the orders of the neodymium go along the z-axis, and this very simple model reproduces that. Experimentally, we find that T nail increases from cubic to tetragonal to neodymium terbium and decreases from cerium. The model reproduces that. Right? You have the, I'm running out of batteries. So you have here the increase of T nail for neodymium and terbium and the decrease of cerium, the T nail for cerium. Oh, let's look at a very simple idea here now. So we know for a fact that these wave functions are changing, and that may increase G anisotropy. So you can go for a cubic gamma 7 with an isotropic, totally isotropic spin, to a different crystal field gamma 7 state, which is very anisotropic. We put the field in different direction, and the zero splitting is very anisotropic. And that's different. That's very different, although it's a combination of the same angular momentum functions. Well, let's set hierarchical one interaction here, and let's try to set a Kondo picture there. You may say, well, but everything is going to change as a function of the crystal field. That's right. It's a complicated thing. But I'm going to try to keep those fixed and see what happens. For example, so here in this case, we're going to have an antiferromagnet. Right? I'm enriching TK. I know the temperature. I have the energy scale for the hierarchical interaction. I'm going to order the system, maybe with a partially compensated magnet moment, right? And I have an isotropic spin here, spin and a half, with will behave very isotropically. When you go to the tetragonal compound, so you start changing that wave function and changing the G anisotropy, I showed by the very simple model that T nu can decrease. So even if you keep RKQI and TK in the same energy scale, your T nu you're going to decrease because of the crystal field induced frustration. So you can go from an antiferromagnet to a system with TK is larger than Tn. So we're going to compensate that moment. So I'm showing a very simple local picture that may have some influence in your Doniak phase diagram. Right? So if you have something like that happen, you're going to end up here with some frustrated local moment just by the crystal field action. That frustrated local moment are in the plane because Serial wants to order in the plane by our model. Right? So if you take now the hybridization, you are having strong correlation in the plane that can be filled by your Fermi surface because you have hybridization. So you have strong in plane 2D magnetic fluctuation just this by simple idea. And so that's very simple idea. It could be not right at all. And you are right. And it should be honest. It's a very simplification, very oversimplification of the problem. But it's very curious that it may have some sense. And I think it's interesting that some people around the world have done some peculiar work looking also in that wave function evolution. So that's the Japanese group of Takashi Hota. So they may have some, I'm not advertising anyone's theory here, I just want to call attention that some people has looked at the problem and got similar ideas. Well, so they might have, this model could be also an oversimplification of the problem. But it's interesting to know that when you consider both orbital and spin degrees of freedom of that lower crystal field state, you can tune your ground state from antiferromagnet to superconductor by controlling the competition between the orbital fluctuation and the spin fluctuation given by that state. And when you change that that ground state wave function, you actually change that contribution because you are really modifying your 3/2, 5/2 states. So you are modifying your wave function, your local ion symmetry. If you make that fluctuates, you are fluctuating in a different way because your spin at the beginning has a different symmetry. So there is one important question that we need to answer in order to understand Heavy-Fermion superconductivity in these materials is they can help. The 115 and the related materials, why are there so many Heavy-Fermion superconductors in the same magnetic structure? You have a tetragonal compound, you have serine 5, serine 5, the 218s, the 122, serine 2, silica 2, all of those of the family, all of them are tetragonal compounds. If you get serial compounds, all of them are in tetragonal symmetry. So, I'm sorry, I'm going to conclude that. Oh, 10 minutes, so I'm fine. So, all of them actually, you may have that crystal field ground state I'm showing you for all the tetragonal compounds. So, tuning that in different ways can construct maybe perhaps that phase diagram. I mean, you should be able to answer that question. So, I know that what I'm trying to say here, it's a very simplified way to look at the problem. The problem is much more complicated than that. But it has to have some effect, in my opinion. I mean, that local symmetry, right, should be important to help induce superconductivity somehow. Otherwise, why would you have all of them the same symmetry? And thank you all for your attention.
Questions? Yes, here.
I wasn't quite clear, in your crystal field model, is it the anti-ferromagnetic interaction you're tuning the crystal field?
Yes.
Wouldn't that then mean that the plutonium system would be on the very brink of magnetism? It would be the highest TC from the system that's closest to instability?
Not necessarily. I should get the do we know the actual wave function of the plutonium at the ground state? Do we know?
No.
So I can find one that you're going to have a denial that decreases down to 0 by this model. Using the tetragonal crystal field. Because it has G equal 5 halves. And I showed you that G equal 5 halves, I can tune denial to 0 for that J. Right? It's like 0, it has the same J. So it could have the same crystal field ground state with the same symmetry, but with a different mixing parameter, and that's why it has a larger TC. Being very dreaming, you know. But now, actually, we know that C over A let me try to explain something. So we know for C over A that to scale both plots, we need to normalize by a number, right? So the energy scale of the spin fluctuation is important for sure, right? So on one hand, you are increasing the spin fluctuation temperature, right? And on the other hand, you are having the same C over A evolution that you are tuning the wave function in the similar way. So at the end, you may have for plutonium, cobalt, gallium 5, serial cobalt, gallium 5, very similar doublet down there, but you have different energy scale. So you have the same kind of fluctuation, but they are stronger. Or they have the same symmetry, but they are stronger for plutonium.
So, how do you expect pressure to change your crystal field levels?
So pressure can, for example, a very easy way to prove all these things is to get the rhodium 5, do an elastic scattering to the function of pressure, and see if the ground state changes. It should go to the ground state of cobalt. No, you can listen. Okay. Right? So you may ask, why would it change? Right? So we need to keep it clear that when you have the crystal field, it's not only the charge that creates your potential. The Fermi surface is also important for that. So your conduction electrodes are surrounding your ion with the same symmetry of your crystal fields. And if you change even hybridization, you should change that too. So at the end, everything is happening at the same time. I just don't think that we need to forget one of the elements. So that's why I try to forget about everything else and look at only at the crystal field to see what was happening. It seems that driving a very interesting frustration mechanism there that one should be taking that in account, in my opinion.
Excuse me, Pascoal.
Yes,
Only
please.
a pressure. The C over A relation works in the same way.
In plutonium and cerium, you mean? You need to normalize it, like I said. They have the same slope. If you divide delta Tc over delta C over A, they have the same slope. They are not in the same line. They have the same slope. Plutonium, cobalt, gallium 5 has a smaller C over A ratio than cerium. So it failed. But if you normalize to say, well, let's look just at the slope. They have the same slope. So like I said, the C over A is not the only ingredient, of course. You change the strain of your fluctuation. But the local symmetry, in my opinion, it determines the C over A is an effect at the local symmetry. And the change in Tc between cerium cobalt and 5 and plutonium cobalt gallium 5 is, of course, related to the strain of the fluctuation, in my opinion. So if you go to a 3D material, for example, and you can find a frustrate state, magnetic state, that has the same symmetry of that gamma 7, but you have a TSF of 100, you're going to have a higher Tc.
Any more questions? Let's thank Pascoal again. To ask you to please stand up and give some very special thanks to the person who was the perfect host and made this all possible. Thanks.
And just for completeness, since Claudio has evaded this, he was the guy who helped translate, who had part of the original vision for this meeting, and I think we should give him a hand too. Thank you.
Years that he plans to do such a school in Rio.